Ladies and gentlemen, a standing ovation, please, for the Angmo who is okay, Nick French.
A fantabulous day to each and every one of you. Hasn't it been a great day so far? Yes. Right? We've been tantalized by Tim. We've had sharing from Shirley. We've been energized by Eric. And we've been soothed by Sarah. Yes. And now, the time has come to get naughty. Naughty with Nick. That's what we're going to be doing for the next half an hour. Let me ask you, are you feeling great now? You feeling? I thought you learned by now that you say yes loudly the first time. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to please all stand up. All stand up. Let's get a bit of blood flowing here. And on the count of 3, you're going to shout, not whisper, shout, I feel great. And do this. Right? Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. I feel great. Not bad. Let's try it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I feel great. Right, thank you. Please sit down. I hope you are all indeed feeling great. But let's talk about this sign. What does this sign mean? It means okay, right? But you know, if you go to Japan, any Japanese here? If you go to Japan, do you know what this means? Money. Money, right. It means money in Japan. How about if you went to France? Any of you been to France? Any people from France here? You know what this means in France? It means 0. This is 0 in France. Now, has anyone been to Brazil? Anyone been to Brazil? Do you know what this means in Brazil? You don't want to know. This is a very bad sign to give somebody in Brazil. If a Brazilian takes you out for a meal and he asks you, how's the food? And you say, it's great. That's giving him a very mixed signal. And if you want to know what it means, you can ask me at lunchtime. So you can see here we've got a bit of a cultural difference in just the simple type of body language. So how do you overcome that problem in Brazil? What other sign can you give? How about this? It's great, fantastic. Do you agree? You could give this sign. But you know what? If you're in Bangladesh or in Nigeria or some Arab countries, you don't give this sign. You don't indicate with your thumb, because that's also not considered appropriate. So you see, just simple actions like this across a cultural barrier can have an impact on a relationship. I mean, for the first half of today, we've heard about connecting with people by the way we speak, by the way we bond with them. But this has been mainly across one cultural level, amongst ourselves. When we have to deal across a cultural barrier, it becomes even more challenging. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is connecting the cultural dots to success. How we can connect better across cultural barriers. Now, you'd want to connect better with somebody. Why? Because of the relationship. That's what it's all about. That's what we're talking about today, is establishing and maintaining a relationship. So I'd like to ask you, why are relationships important? Just select a partner at your table and have a 2-minute discussion on what you consider the important aspects of maintaining a good relationship. Now, culture's a bit like an iceberg. You know, an iceberg, 1/5 sits above the water and 4/5 sits below. And sometimes it's very difficult to understand somebody's culture. Above the water, we can usually see what's there, but below, it's not always so obvious. Let's look at what's above the water first. Typically things like language, you can tell by the language somebody speaks, where they're from, what kind of food they eat, the clothing they wear, and how they conduct themselves. That's fairly obvious, easy to see above the water stuff. But below the water sits 4/5 of the rest of the culture. And that's not always so obvious to us. These are things that are a little bit more difficult to get a handle on, to get a grip of. Communication style, beliefs, attitudes, norms and values. Now, can you imagine if you bring your iceberg close to somebody else's and you don't have an understanding of what lies below the water, you're going to have an almighty collision. And perhaps quite a lot of damage could be done. You know, on Sunday, it was the 100th anniversary of when the Titanic hit an iceberg and sank. So it's quite appropriate that we're talking about this now. So what I'd like to ask you to think a little bit about, as I've given you a clue here, is how do you get this cross-cultural competence so that you can establish a relationship with somebody from another culture that perhaps you're meeting for the first time? I believe you need to have 4 attributes. 4. And they begin with A, K, R, and W. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes at your table to try and guess what these are. What we have. First of all, A. Now, some of you out there had attitude, which I like, which is actually a right answer, but it's not what I have here. Awareness. Awareness. Right. Somebody had it over there. Well done. Congratulations. Just simply to be aware that we are different. Then, knowledge. Acquire a knowledge of that other culture. Then, willingness. Willingness to change, to morph yourself when you communicate with another party. And then finally, respect. I think that's fairly evident, right? So these are 4 attributes. If you can take these away with you and implement them in your lives when you mix with other cultures, this will stand you in good stead. Let's talk about clarity. Let's have a look at something called context, and I need 2 volunteers to come and do a role play. Okay, we've got one over there and another one over there, another Caucasian lady. Please come up and join me here. We're going to do a very quick role play. Give these ladies a big hand, please. Very brave. Hi, would you like to come over here? Sure. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do a small role play. Now, I'm going to let you into a little secret. I actually fancy these 2 ladies. And I'm going to ask them out on a date. And I want you to listen to the response that they're going to give me. Okay? So the first lady here, your name is?
Liz.
This is Liz. Now, Liz, would you like to go out for dinner with me on Saturday night?
I'll check my schedule and I'll get back to you on a date or time. I'll come back.
Okay, thank you. And you are?
Mariana.
Hi, Mariana.
Hi.
Would you like to go out on a date with me on Saturday night?
Thank you for the invitation, but I'm sorry, I'm not available.
Now, this was the story of my life, let me tell you. But what's happened here is I've been given the same message expressed differently. You see, from an Asian perspective, it's more implied. It's what you call a high context message. It's a bit indirect. You see, I came away from that little discussion thinking there's still a chance she's going to come back and phone me. Okay, but actually it's a very strong no answer, ladies, right? You agree. But Mariana here was far more direct. I knew exactly what was happening and that the door is shut. That's it. Okay, so thank you very much, ladies. Thank you. Please give them an applause. So can you see, sometimes it's important to give a direct message. You know, men are actually stupid most of the time. Yeah, okay, I connected there, I can see. However, Western men are even more stupid when they're interacting in an Asian environment because they don't pick up these subtle nuances of high context communication. Vague messages to them sometimes mean maybe yes is still forthcoming. You know, a favorite Japanese phrase is, that may be difficult. Okay, now in Western context, that means, okay, maybe we can talk about it and do something. But actually Japanese, no, that's it. Game over. So if you're communicating with a Westerner from an Asian perspective, try and be more direct. When you have your job performance review, feel that you can speak up and be a bit more direct because they'll appreciate it. So we've touched on 5 of the 10 dots, how you can perhaps connect a little bit better across cultures. We've looked at the importance of relationships, and especially across cultures, as a way of building trust. We've looked at rules, identity, involvement, context, and demeanor. So I encourage you to think about that, particularly the whole aspect of context. Now it's time for lunch, and I have one more request of you. If I come up to you at lunchtime and say, would you like to go to dinner with me on Saturday night? What are you going to say? Wrong! You're going to say, sure. What time? Thank you very much. Back to you, Tim.
Keep it going. One more time. A giant round of applause for Nick French. Thank you, Nick.